My name is Matt. In a few months I'll be 50 and I've nearly died 3 times in my life. One of those occasions was in this tiny bivvy tent and I've not camped in it since. Tonight we're going to find a nice spot to camp. I'm going to set it up, I'm going to spend the night in it. I'm going to tell you about what happened when I slept in this previously and what I learned from it, and my other 2 experiences when I've nearly died. Come with me into camp and let's get set up. So this is one of my favourite spots to camp. I'm out amongst these enormous Douglas fir trees. This is the AquaQuest Hooped Bivvy. It's basically a tiny, tiny tent. Tonight we're going to get this set up and we're going to camp in it. And here it is. Oh, that's it. Took a couple of minutes. You would never think, would you, that this tent could instill such terror in me. I camped in it once, and I've never camped in it again. And I do a lot of camping, as you can see from my channel. So later on tonight, I'm going to go through exactly what happened here. But I'm also going to tell you about the other 2 occasions. Now we're all set up, it's probably worth talking about the first time that I nearly died. Now it's worth saying before I do all of these stories that I'm here. You're listening to the story. I didn't die, but I did learn something from each of these experiences. None of them are combat, aggression related instances. They're everyday things, apart from the last one with this tent. They are everyday occurrences that will happen to countless people every single day. And I certainly took a lot from them in terms of being a bit careful. The first one occurred to me when I was 18 or 19. I had a little bit of freedom all of a sudden. I had a car that I could use and I could drive and go and explore and do stuff. And myself and a friend of mine went camping. We went up to the Lake District, which is an area in the north of England with quite a lot of high peaks. So it's a very, very busy area, and we were there in summer. However, because it's mountainous and because it's by the sea, it can get, and does get, absolutely terrible weather from time to time. And we were there on one of the days where the weather was just unspeakably poor. Driving rain, driving wind. And myself and my friend had done a 2-day hike. The first day was fantastic. It was glorious. It was weather like this, just pure, crystal clear blue skies everywhere. We had a great time. We were carrying all our kits, and all our kit was incredibly heavy. None of it was lightweight. All of it was as cheap as you could possibly imagine. And we'd done the first day, and we'd camped, and we got back to our tents, went to the pub on the evening of the first day, and we got back to our tents and the weather had turned, and now the weather was driving and awful. And both of our tents had been flattened by the wind, and this is at a campsite in a valley. So we got back in our tents and we kind of re-established the pole structure. There were a few rips, poles were a bit broken, but it was enough to stay up. And all through the night I was waking up trying to readjust the poles because it was still windy and raining. The following morning we got up, packed down. Those tents were wrecked. The following morning we packed down. Now, we were young. We didn't have any money. We were stupid in the same way that I don't mean we're actually stupid. I mean, we were full of youthful hubris. And we also knew that we had to walk back to the car that day. And if we didn't walk back to the car that day, we would be late getting back to the start of term for university. Or we'd have to pay for a taxi, and we didn't want to pay for a taxi. And also, this is in the days pre-Uber, we're talking 30 years ago. We didn't really even know how to go and get a taxi. And in fact, if I'm honest, I don't think I'd ever been in a taxi at that point. So we decided we'd walk back in the appalling weather. And I'm sure you can see this is a weather story, and it is a weather story, but also this is a story about having the courage to know when the conditions are beyond you. We started walking up the hill, and we were walking up a hill, and then we'd go up from that onto a ridge, and then we were going along the ridge line, quite a narrow ridge line, and then we had to drop down the other side, and then we were back to our car. On the climb up, we went past one person. It was a man. I want to say he was in his 40s or 50s, and he said, "Don't go up there, unbelievable, I've never seen anything like it, I'm coming straight back down." Obviously, that's what we should have done. We didn't do that. We carried on up onto the ridge, and we got onto the ridge, and the winds across the ridge, I've never ever experienced anything even close to being like that. They were unbelievably strong. They were winds so strong you could stand up at an oblique angle and not fall over. We were getting blown over. Our kit, so I think I mentioned this is all cheap kit that we'd got. Nothing was waterproof, and that means our whole bags became completely waterlogged. We were carrying all of our kit, and it was all saturated with water as well. I now know, of course, you just stuff it all in a bin bag, and that's going to keep out 99.9% of the water, the odd rip or whatnot. We were continuously being blown over. We had no visibility. So visibility was such that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. All we had was a compass. We stayed very close together in literal physical contact, following a compass bearing, because we knew if we kept on this compass bearing, if we kept going and kept going and kept going, eventually we would hit the end of the ridge and come back down again. That's what we did. We followed it, and I regard that as being my first instance when I look back as being a time when I could easily, through my own hubris or lack of maturity, have killed myself. I kept going. What we should have done was gone straight back down, figured out how to get a taxi, walked back along the roads. There were a lot of alternative ways. What I am concerned could have happened there, my first instance, is we could have been blown off the mountain, and it would have been so easy to have been blown off the mountain. We could have misplaced a footstep because you couldn't see. We were literally going compass bearing along a ridge that went on for quite a long distance, I think a few miles. We didn't die, so we moved on, and we carry on living, and I think that was an important lesson for me to mature up and recognise that there are some circumstances and there are some conditions that are beyond you, and that you shouldn't be attempting them. So it's time for dinner. So we're going to get a little fire going, and I'm going to do it in this Toaks Titanium afterburner style pot. Now, what's interesting about this pot is this pot was my most successful video, where I attempted to test it in a variety of conditions and found that it wasn't very good. Now, I've since decided that I'm going to give it another go, and the reason I'm going to give it another go is I have a feeling that the reason I had problems with it was the wood, the pine wood that I was trying to burn, wasn't very high quality. So now I've got a bit of oak. Looks like it's all oak, maybe a bit of ash as well. that I'm going to try and burn in here, just some twigs, but they're very dry. So I'm going to get this going. Dinner tonight, very exciting, homemade dehydrated chili. So I'm off to Canada in a couple of months, and I will be preparing all of my own food and to take it out and dehydrating it. So I have a dehydrator at home, and I cook the food as per usual, pop it in the dehydrator. I'm also testing couscous. So rice obviously takes a very long time to cook. That's annoying, no one wants to have to do that. So this time I'm going to try couscous, because I know that cooks much quicker, and hopefully still tastes fine. I would agree. Very precarious balanced on top of that pot. And then this is going to nestle inside this little packet, keep it warm, and then I can eat directly out of this. No washing up. Yes. So, beer o'clock, Camden Pale Ale. Happy days. While I'm waiting for that to rehydrate, I'll tell you about the second time. I don't want to say it was a near-death experience, because it wasn't a near-death experience, but it was definitely an experience when I could easily have died. And not only me, but my wife and my 2 children. And I was in the car on holiday in the US. I think we were in either Yellowstone or Colorado, I can't remember where exactly, but we were driving into a national park. And there were some cars there, maybe there was 5 or 6 cars in front and some cars behind. It wasn't heavy traffic, you wouldn't describe it as traffic in any way. But as we were driving along, one of the cars further ahead of us had seen something in the road. A deer, a buffalo, I think it was a buffalo actually. So he stopped. And then all the other cars behind him stopped, and I stopped, and we looked at the buffalo. I'm sure it was a buffalo. And then after a few seconds, I heard screaming brakes, and then to my right, a Winnebago, a very large Winnebago, pulled off the road at very high speed and drove into the grasslands. It was the vehicle directly behind me. The driver of that vehicle either wasn't looking, was on his phone, didn't notice. I assume it's him, I don't know, not sure. But hadn't braked. And had he not have looked up at the moment that he did, I think I wouldn't be here making YouTube videos. Myself, my wife, my 2 children would be dead. He was going at an incredible pace. He wasn't keeping an eye on the road, and he just looked up at the last minute, swerved off the road, and went straight down into the grassland. He was fine. It was an area where he could drive off. There were quite tall grasses, but then the vehicle in front of me, or a couple of vehicles in front of me, drove off, and we all drove off, and we all just went about our day. And I often think back to that moment. If the guy hadn't have looked up, what the hell would have happened? That could have been an absolutely terrifying situation. I learned from that as well, and it was a small practical lesson. The practical lesson that I picked up from that is whenever I brake hard on a motorway or a freeway or even an A road, and if I pull up to some traffic, I'm always looking in the rear view mirror. What's the guy behind me doing? I'll quite often use my hazards, but I'm looking, the guy behind me. I'll also pull up to the vehicle in front of me with quite a big gap. The sort of gap, especially as a London driver, is going to annoy anyone who can see it, but a big gap so that if this vehicle doesn't see me, I've got a bit of deceleration before I slam into the vehicle in front of me. I'm always looking. If I think they haven't noticed, I'm just going to whack the horn, hope for the best. You've got to be careful out there. It's it's a safe world, it's an amazing world, and if you just spent your time at home watching the telly, there's no danger, or flicking through TikTok or whatever it is, that there's no danger to that, but you don't live your life. You've got to get out and you've got to live it. You've got to go to places, you've got to see things, you've got to take these risks. And with those risks comes the potential danger, but also the reward of living a full life. So that was my second. I think it's definitely time for my beer. Grub's got to be up now, hasn't it? So I know why I'm running out of water, because the couscous is soaking up all the time. But let's give this a bite. There's a lot of food here, actually. There's a lot of couscous. That was 100 grams of chili and 100 grams of couscous. Definitely too much couscous. So the third time that I nearly died, and hopefully the last time, was in this tent. And it happened maybe about 10 years ago, and I went on a survival course. And at the time, the kit that I bought cheap kit. This is a cheap item. And the survival course was brilliant. Learned a lot. It wasn't really a survival course, really, it was a bushcraft course. But it was very good. I'd highly recommend it, and I still recommend it to people that are looking to get into bushcraft activities. But it suggested taking a bivvy bag. So I bought this item. And the first night I camped in it, I got in this, and I zipped up the fly screen, and then I zipped up the plastic cover, which I put all over and zipped all the way around. And then I went to sleep. I woke up, I don't even know how long, but a few hours later, and I couldn't breathe. I'd used up all of the oxygen inside. This is plastic material. There is no ventilation in it, not with the plastic covering it, and I was out of oxygen, and I panicked. I could tell I wasn't breathing right. Really deep breaths, like this, and absolutely no oxygen. I need to say I don't have panic attacks. This certainly wasn't a panic attack. I'm very comfortable with small spaces. It sounds strange, but I'd actively go so far to say I like small spaces. I quite often sleep in tiny tents or bivvy bags, very comfortable. I was out of oxygen, and I started to panic, trying to find the zip as quickly as I possibly could, clawing all the way around the edges to try and locate where it was. Of course I found it and opened it, and as soon as I could breathe the air outside, it's completely fine. If I hadn't have found it, I'd have had a problem. And who knows how long I would have gone for, and how long I was struggling to breathe for whilst asleep. Lessons that I've learnt now, whenever I'm camping, I'll always make sure I have a knife or two. This isn't because of running out of oxygen. The most likely issue that you have when you're in a tent is if you're cooking in the one entrance and there's a problem. The gas explodes, the gas can explodes, or blooms, and it catches the tent fabric on fire. I always make sure I've got a knife so that I can make my own exit if I need to, and that knife is always around my neck, right here. So with this, if I'd have had this, which I didn't at the time, I could have immediately left the tent and opened it, and I would have had less of a worry. But I didn't, and I had to find a zip in the pitch black. I also always try and leave the zip in the most sensible place now, wherever it is you might go and grab. So here, it's obviously, I'm going to leave the zip here. Now, tonight, it's actually my second night. I was camping last night as well. Tonight we have completely clear blue skies. There's no rain in the forecast, so I'm going to be sleeping without anything. Using this in the future, if I do use it again after tonight, I'm never going to be zipping the plastic covering across the top. If it were to be used in inclement weather, I would make sure I have a small micro tarp that I can put across the top so that I don't zip it up. But that's it. That's my third near-death experience. And on that note, I'm going to wish you good night, and I'll see you in the morning. I survived, but where's the zip? That was the problem I had when I had it zipped up all the way. Of course, I had a bug screen zipped up as well, so I had 2 zips to find and escape from, but I managed it. Oh, comfortable night's sleep. It's wonderful listening to all the birds and the sounds in the morning. You never see any birds, but you hear thousands. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to put a number on it, but there's so many of them, especially this time of year. It's absolutely fabulous. This is a 2-nighter, and last night, separate video, last night I was woken up at 4 AM, so I have slept in today, which is very nice. A rare treat. But it's time to get up and out and pack down. I very much hope you enjoyed my story. I hope my three instances that I certainly learnt lessons from and have changed things as a result. I hope those 3 didn't feel like clickbait to you. They were genuine, and they were things that have happened. None of them have had, long-term mental health issues. They're definitely just events that have occurred, and I guess that's part of life. When you go through life and you do things, you take risks. Very interested to know if anybody else has had any similar experiences. Please do let me know in the comments if you've had anything like that happen to you, especially in a camping context. If you ever had a kit fail. Frankly, I mean, yes, this thing nearly killed me with lack of oxygen, but that feels like a design problem to me. There should be some sort of venting that's built into this. I can't imagine I'm the only person that's done that, but yeah. Right, it's time to get up. If you're a regular watching the channel, I don't do breakfast ever, so I'm up and out, but I am going to make myself a nice cup of tea on the stove. This sleeping bag is a special hammock sleeping bag, and it's got a zip down the middle, and it's so convenient in so many cases to have a zip down the middle of your sleeping bag. I always measure out my water so I know I've got exactly the right amount. All packed away, all clear. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please drop me a like. And if you've had any similar experiences, please drop me a comment. And if you'd like to see more of this sort of content, then please subscribe. You know the deal. I've very much enjoyed making it, so I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks very much. Goodbye.